Intellects do not believe in God, but they fear us just the same. Oh, no, no.
Welcome to Communal Expressions, where we gather community voices to promote positive action, to uplift and sustain the African American community. This is your host, Eva, and I'm so excited about our guest today. Our first guest is Judge Sheree Grant. You may know her as one of the twin African American judges here in Birmingham. Well, she's actually sitting in a district court seat presently, and she's here today to share with us some wisdom about how we each can be a positive impact in our communities. And as we continue our analysis of July 2016, which was the month that we had the double police brutality incidents that hit social media live, and we also had the mass police shootings that occurred in that month, we've invited on Adam Mixon. Adam serves as a young adult voice here in Birmingham, Alabama, but he's going to talk about some of the interactions that took place on social media while these things were happening and as they played out in the weeks to come. Adam also pastors in the Avondale community here in Birmingham, Alabama. So if you would just stay tuned, we'll go right into our interview with Judge Sheree Grant, and we'll move into our discussion with our guest voice for the week, Adam Mixon.
So I have a few questions that I have for you that a lot of us have been thinking about, kind of watching your career, your community outreach track record. It's evident to all of us that uplifting and building the community is important to you. So presently, what community issues currently weigh on your heart the most?
I really think that the community issues that weigh on my heart the most would involve children, because children can't always speak for themselves, and oftentimes they're placed in circumstances beyond their control. So the community issues that I see involve children, whether it be that those kids don't have access to certain things because of the area they live in or the school they attend, or any issues that affect them, whether it's in poverty. I'm just always trying to make sure that all kids are on the same even playing field.
So, we have a variety, a diverse group of people who listen in to the podcast, many of which who are young adults in the city. What words of wisdom would you say to the young adults about community outreach and volunteering?
Sometimes I think people don't do something because they feel that, this is such a big task, or they think they need to save the world. And it's great if you get an opportunity to save the world, but realistically, the reality is if you help one or two people, and you can start off small in your community, there is always a need. So I think the biggest advice that I'll give to people is you don't have to save the world. Save 2 or 3 people that are around you, because believe it or not, there is always someone that needs help, that needs some type of guidance. When I started the Leadership Academy program, it would be great to be able to have 100 kids in this program, but I don't have the funds for that, and I can't do it. And so I try to help those 12 kids that were in the program each session and really focus on that. And I think sometimes when you do that, things start to spread, because it'll spread like a wildfire. You may save these 12, but then later on you'll come in contact with other people that want to get to know you, or want to become involved, or want to help their community even more. It's about just starting small and saving those around us, whether it's 1 or 2 people.
Well, I agree, because a lot of times people get overwhelmed. They think they have to go start some new organization, get some type of funding, and there are organizations that already exist. I tell people, find out what your passion is.
Exactly.
And then from there, you find out what organization is already doing the work, and you just plug right on in, because they already have the resources and the structure and the plan, and you just plug into their vision, and you can make a big impact. I think about a lot, how the city of Birmingham, if everybody did something.
I completely agree with you. And I think, for instance, I do a lot of work in the community. Specifically, I think about the work with kids. Kids don't require a lot. They just want some time, and they want some attention. And when I started the Leadership Academy program, we didn't have a lot of money, but we had a lot of people that would volunteer to come and talk about HIV prevention. We had some money in the grants, but I would order pizza and we would sit and talk and we would talk about meaningful things. So sometimes if you have time, that's the most valuable thing. You don't need, $100,000 to get this program started. It's great if you do, but if you have purpose and if you have a desire to help and if you have some time that you actually want to give to people, I think those are the most important things.
Yes. And I always say if you just take one step, you start to see things happening. And the people who have the funding, the people who have the ideas for that vision, they'll show up.
Yep, that's right. Absolutely.
So the next question, we observe you from the community. You're a mover and a shaker. You're very involved. You also have your own family. You have an awesome career track record. How do you balance the family, the work, and all that you do in the community?
For me, I'm a very spiritual person, and so I have to say, number one, it's prayer, because sometimes things do get overwhelming for me, and I suffer from sleep deprivation and exhaustion just like everybody else does, but I really do think that God has a purpose for me, and so I continuously pray about things. And I want my kids to see that I have little kids, a 7 and a 3-year-old, and I want them to see that their mommy has a career but is excited and wants to do other things outside of the household by helping other people, because the way I was raised, that you make sure that you help someone else and you make your community better. And so I want my kids to see the same thing for me. And so I think for me, prayer, staying on a routine, because I have to stay on a routine with small kids, and making sure that family is first, because I certainly think, when it comes to my spiritual beliefs, God really grants your heart desires when you are doing things in order and in line with Him. I couldn't, just put my family to the side and just think about my career, but have a balancing act and making sure that I am putting family first and spending time with my kids. I just spoke to a group about this because, sometimes for women, we can say, "Oh man, I really can't have it all because I have so much to do and I still need to be a mother." But we can. We just have to make sure that we put things in priority and in order. And there have been times in my career I've really wanted to do more, but I had to take a back seat because I had, a small baby. And I really think it was, it's God's divine plan for everything to happen at the right time when it does happen. And we have to sort of let go of what we think our plan should be and give it up to someone else. And I keep a lot of scriptures on my desk. I keep Philippians 4:6 on my desk. I keep Jeremiah 29:11. And for even people that are not spiritual and that may not be religious, there is all kinds of little help cards of believe in yourself. You can do it. And I think those things are important because sometimes when you have so many things going on, you need a pick-me-up. You need something to tell you, hang in there and you can do it. And for me, it's my spiritual, I certainly think it's my spiritual walk and making sure that I keep my priorities in order.
Wow, and you just spoke of a spiritual principle that's very important to understand, which is divine timing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I haven't always known that. God had to show me that, there's a timing to everything.
Right. And from looking at your life, I would say that principle is just written all over it, all over your life. So as we close, is there anything else you would want us or your listeners to know about you?
One of the things I think that's most important more than anything is making sure that you really help people in the community, because I think it's awesome, and I have a wonderful opportunity to be a judge here. I'm a district civil court judge, and all of that is great. But all of that stuff would be for naught if you are not giving back to your community, because if it weren't for programs such as like the Leadership Academy program or various programs. I was in so many different programs growing up as a kid, and I was looking up to other people. If I saw another lawyer in my church or around town or just going to the dentist, it made me think, oh, I can be this person or I can be that. And so it's important to really, take time out and give back to your community and make sure that you are doing something worthwhile, because at the end of the day, no one is going to say, "Oh, I wish I would have spent a little bit more time at work." People are always going to say, "I wish I would have spent more time with my family," or "I wish I would have done this in the community. I wish I would
Yes.
have helped this kid when I saw that this kid wanted to spend some time with me." So that's the most important thing that I think is important for people to remember.
No,
So, Adam, what I want to talk to you about today was the 2 weeks of hysteria in July and some of the responses that could be seen on social media immediately after the incidents. Okay, so we had the police brutality incidents and the Dallas and the Baton Rouge police or law enforcement targeted shootings. And immediately, what I began to see was, especially ministers and Christians, post "Love your neighbors as you love yourselves" as an immediate response to this violence that we were seeing. For me, it didn't feel like an adequate or holistic or even an authentic response to the violence and the depth of the violence that was taking place. The first question I had was, how do you love your neighbor? How do you love a system that does not love you? What do you feel about that? That those weeks that we were seeing those posts and all of those scriptures that we were receiving. What do you feel about that type of rhetoric being an immediate response to that type of violence?
As far as being orthodox, there's a place for that, but I think to rush to that immediately following what we witnessed back in July is number one, it's insensitive. Number two, in many ways, it dehumanizes the victim by not acknowledging how painful and how destructive these things really are. And it's an easy answer, and I'm real leery of the source of those types of responses. When people are victims to violence, in order to keep them from responding violently, I guess the appeal is for peace. But very little is said to those who have perpetrated the violence.
Right.
So again, yes, we are supposed to love our enemies and bless those that curse us and do good to those who use us. But initially, I don't think that's the response. The response should be mediated by compassion toward the people who have been victimized. And then we have to be careful with that type of language for other reasons, because Black folks in this country in particular have been ran over and mistreated ever since we were brought here, and then had it imposed upon us, this moral standard imposed upon us that we should love those who are brutalizing us. It doesn't take a whole lot of thought for me to see that as kind of a twisted form of Stockholm syndrome, where you kidnap me and mistreat me, and then I fall in love with you.
Yes.
There's something twisted about that. And again, like I said, I'm leery of where that comes from. If that's coming from white folks or those who are associated with the power structure, I'm really leery of it. And from my Black brothers and sisters, where it comes from, I question how much they really understand how sick that is.
Right.
Now, I believe we grow to that love, but that love doesn't come without a confrontation.
Right.
About truth telling and repentance and then reconciliation.
Right.
You don't just rush to that, I think that's easy sounding, but I think it's actually very destructive, because it lets those who perpetrate violence or those who are silently complicit to that violence, it lets them off the hook.
I remember the first, the first time I saw somebody post that during that time, it actually angered me.
Yeah.
Angered me. It angered me. It angered me so, and I had to really kind of deal with that, and really that particular posting was one of the things that kind of just made me say, I've got to say something. I've got to, after all of this is over, we got to talk about this, because this won't work for me. This won't work for me, and I had the tension of being a minister saying, well, okay, one on one, that sounds good, but I'm dealing with a system, and what you're asking me to do just doesn't seem very holistic because you're not looking at the people who are getting brutalized. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna love all y'all over here, but knowing something's going over here, and that there's benefits of that happening to my community, it just really made me feel angry.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like again, it's just it's easy,
Mm-hmm.
and but it is not. I don't think it's not genuine.
Right.
It's not genuine. Loving someone in some ways is work, and that work demands honesty.
Yes.
Even if that honesty precipitates a confrontation,
Yes.
it has to. It has even if I stand before my enemy who has, you know, struck me or brutalized me in some way. My standing before them is in some ways an act of defiance against that violence. I stand there as a witness against them.
Wow.
But I have to stand there. And
Wow.
if need be, I have to raise my voice. I have to tell the truth. I cannot just silently endure and hope that by some, you know, invisible power, my oppressor is going to feel bad for what he's
Right.
done to me.
Right.
No, I need to be a witness to what he's done to me. I need to lift my voice. I need to protest whatever I have to do in order to confront him
Wow.
about how he's mistreated me. And then again, we can have a foundation for some repentance. And again, I really believe that's a godly model for repentance and genuine reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot separate loving folks from telling them the truth.
Wow.
It's not just, yeah, they shot two black men, let's hold hands
Right.
and sing kumbaya and it's all going to get better. Oh no, the history of violence against black people in this country is woven into the national fabric. And you don't
Yes.
deal with that by just saying, well, you just gotta love them. No,
Yeah.
and I don't mean to sound so sarcastic, but
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to, I don't want to demean anyone's motives. It may have been sincere, but it's naive. I guess that's the best way. I'm gonna
Right.
say it's naive. It's not
Right.
thought out. So yeah. It kind of it makes me angry that that's where
Yes.
people want to go.
Yes. I think we just touched on this, but I had different observations, which I think, could be relative based upon who I had, who you have on your social media accounts. But across all of mine, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. It appeared to
Uh,
me, we had the grief and we had the anger towards our brothers being killed and actually, seeing that for ourselves, pretty graphic content. And
mhm.
then the police shootings. What I
Yeah,
found and what I seem to have observed is that the biblical references started a lot when the police officers were targeted and shot or injured. And for me, it really bothered me even more because it was more than just love your neighbor, but it was just after these particular incidences, I started saying
yeah.
more, more of a call for peace as if peace was not needed 2 days ago.
Before, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And pray for, Baton Rouge, pray for Louisiana, like these cities have had this going on, before the police shootings. And I felt like when it comes to an authority figure, that we are, and I think people look at the police as authority figures. And so we began to get more that pray for peace, love your neighbors. Did you experience any of that?
um, yes, I did, and sadly, it was almost completely down racial lines.
Yeah.
Though those in my circle, and some of these I consider them Christian brothers and sisters,
Mm-hmm.
were advocating for peace and for calm,
Mm-hmm.
in light of the Dallas shootings. But there was there was no prophetic word being spoken when two black men were killed.
No.
No one was saying do justice and love mercy. No one was wringing their hands talking about how bad it was
No.
until the police officers were attacked in Dallas.
Right.
And for me, again, that's hypocrisy.
Right.
It may be well-meaning or naive, but ultimately it's just hypocritical. And I took some people to task. I lost some friendships from people that I grew up with, going to like integrated schools and all of that, because I challenged them.
Mm-hmm.
Conversation went to that uncomfortable place where it was like, how is it that blue lives matter but black don't?
Right.
The problem is the color.
Exactly.
And while you might be functioning under that and not even realize, kind of unconscious, that's your unconscious bias or whatever, it's my job to call you on that. And
Right.
some people got really upset with me for kind of pointing that out, and it's sad. It's sad because I try to keep a broad circle
Mm-hmm.
and try to again be authentic,
Right.
regardless of what role I'm operating in or who's around. And it's sad that so many of my white Christian brothers and sisters are ignorant.
Right.
And part of it is because we live in a country where this corrupted, whitewashed history has informed our theology. So God and country is very close to their hearts.
Mm-hmm.
But if your history is bad or
Mm.
skewed,
Wow.
then necessarily your theology is going to be skewed. And when
Wow.
you start touching those things, people will get fighting mad with you. I mean, I think we see some of that stuff even now going on with the backlash against the quarterback in San
Mm-hmm.
Francisco, not kind of sitting in protest to the pledge and the anthem. People are angry about that because they associate this American democracy, this our national identity, so closely with their faith that they don't realize that they're committing idolatry.
Right.
It's just really twisted. And it's funny, I post stuff all the time trying to get engagement, and I get a lot of amens and responses from the folks that look like me.
Mm-hmm.
But for my white brothers and sisters who read the same scriptures, sing the same hymns, make the same confessions, there is often just silence.
I go through the same.
Yeah, or it's that appeal to, can't we all just get along? Or heaven help
Mm-hmm.
if I get the I don't see color thing.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I'm at a point now where I get so frustrated that I'm just tired of being your free black tour guide. And
Wow.
I'm like, I don't want to educate you. Please read something.
Yes.
Please listen to somebody who does not look like you. Visit someplace or learn from someone who doesn't agree with you.
Right.
Broaden yourself, get some perspective. I just get exasperated by it. But yeah, I noticed that, and it's frustrating. It's extremely frustrating. But that being said, there is a small group here in the city that I begin to kind of really hold accountable for what they say.
Mm-hmm.
And what they confess. And there's been some growth. And then there's some other people who want to maintain the institution that I
Mm-hmm.
just make nervous as hell. So yeah, I've noticed that divide is stark, and it's disappointing. Because of my faith, I remain hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I think about human sinfulness,
Right.
and our propensity to just wreck what would be an idyllic paradise if given opportunity, we ruin it. There's a part of me that just my insides are twisted because conversations like the one that we are having, the people who need to be at the table and a part of the conversations are the one who, because of privilege, get to choose whether or not they're at the table.
Exactly.
And most of them, not willing to compromise that privilege,
Mm-mm.
they don't engage.
Right.
Their choice is to not listen, to not sensitize themselves to the issues that are affecting, brown skin brothers and sisters who share
Mm-hmm.
the same faith. It is, yeah. I vacillate with that because I see, in small areas, especially in my really close relationships where there's progress, but then I see in a broad scale, well, the people who really need to be sitting and listening aren't
Mm-hmm.
sitting and they're not sitting and listening. So how do we make them listen?
What do you feel like the church's response should be in some areas, or how did you respond from a pastoral perspective? That Wednesday and Sunday leading up to, in the middle of, and afterwards. How did you respond?
It's interesting. I don't have, broad insight into all churches. Again,
Mhm.
black churches isn't a monolith either.
Mhm.
But where I serve, we're very deliberate in making sure that our doctrine and practice are bound together. So we're involved in the community
Mhm.
year round. And the issues that rose up in July are issues that we talk about all the time
Wow.
because they shape our reality. So in some ways, if this is a sad statement, just hear me.
Mhm.
It's a sad statement because it is business as usual.
Wow.
It's you all know this fallen world we live in. You know the broken system that we live under.
Mm.
So there's this constant and deliberate prayerfulness and militancy and intercession. And
Wow.
while at the same time, there's always two conversations that I have to have.
Mhm.
There's a conversation, the words that I give to those in my care. Y'all know the system is broken. You know it's not fair. You know the playing field is not level.
Mhm.
But God is our X factor.
Wow.
We deal with this brokenness, this unfairness, this injustice. But my faith says if God is for us, who can be against? We will not
Amen.
allow those things to define us. We will not be limited by those things, um, which means that I demand a high level of personal responsibility.
Mm.
Black men, whether it's child support or traffic violations, don't get your name in the system. Handle your business.
Wow.
That's pastorally. But then while I'm out here dealing with these, organizations within the city, I'm saying, hey y'all, this system is broken. It's not
Mhm.
fair. Stop doing this to my folks. So there's
Mhm.
always this sliding back and forth between speaking pastorally, watching over these folks, trying to keep them from getting devoured by
Mhm.
this wicked system, but at the same time having to turn on my heel and speak truth to power
Wow.
and hold accountable those who are in position to change the systems that are, unfairly set against my folks. That's just where we live. It's not a switch that I flip on because the news changed. It's
Mm.
this is how we live. This is brutal. It's unfair. It's messed up. But God.